credit in the world to solve that homicide goes to Detective retired Mike Yolacco. Because Mike was in the 2-3 RIP.
Yeah.
He came from the Bronx, and when he got in the bureau, he went into the 2-3 RIP. He was a Bronx cop his whole career. And for some reason, I don't know why, that case became his pet. It was on his desk. You know, and every once in a while, he'd call the family on his own just to say we're still working. Because let me tell you, with that case, you want to talk about a cold case. That was ice.
Yeah.
That was ice.
And a 13-year-old girl. That's really,
and we had, and stabbed right in the chest and put right on the side of the bridge, the footbridge in the FDR. Right. I can't tell you how many times we went there and stood at the location. And the only evidence they had on her was one pubic hair.
All right, so we're back, man. We are here in Ossining, New York, the palatial estates of my partner in law enforcement.
Every time you say that, I have to say this premise is protected by Glock, Smith & Wesson, and Tommy Kennedy, and Ralph Friedman. They patrol here. Just
we get comments with the palatial estates. People like when I say that, so apparently. So we got our engineer, Andrew, the kid, Steiner.
Andrew Steiner.
Behind the wheels, behind the ones.
He's a fellow tribesman to Scotty Wagner here, right?
And we got our guest, retired New York City detective, Scott Wagner. And he was a housing cop. And he was telling us a little bit about what it was like to be a housing cop. Did you didn't do many verticals, I would imagine.
Well,
you said you had 4 months and then you were out of
No, I was in uniform for 10 months. That was it. And
so you're a housing cop. You come out of the academy. You do 10 months in uniform.
No. We did 3 months straight with an FTO.
Okay,
that's a field training officer. Yeah,
and it's funny. My FTO had 8 months on me.
Oh wow!
I think he was out of the last 80 class. But we're off the same list. But he, it was one-on-one.
Where are you again? You're in
PSA
Manhattan.
5, which is
Manhattan.
Spanish Harlem.
Okay.
There is a rose in Spanish Harlem.
Here it is, right there.
He's got the tattoo. Look at that. Can we get a shot of that, Andrew? The Rose of Spanish Harlem.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's more songs about Spanish Harlem, right?
Yeah.
Carlos Santana did that tune.
Yeah.
Van Morrison did a tune about Spanish Harlem too.
So
they shot it.
So
right
did
there in
you
the middle
too.
of the
You
street
too
over
did
there.
one too.
I was
about
reading
Spanish
something where
Harlem.
they shot it. They shot the video.
The video there, yeah.
And there was
it was on 100 and.
And they shot for
111th.
3 days, and a lot of people that
they're off in the hood. They're off in the
that was
neighborhood.
pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, Mark Anthony too.
Mark Anthony was from, he was actually friends with one of the
he
2-3
grew
cops.
up in Metro North in the projects.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to see him all the time. But like I said, housing, you were with an FTO, you worked around the clock, days, midnights, 4 to 12.
Uh-huh.
Days, midnights, 4 to 12.
The night shot, right?
And I don't know what it was called. It was just,
called
you
the
never knew
housing
what
chart.
you never knew where you were coming and going.
Short.
And that was your partner. Whether you were on a foot post, radio car, whatever, that was your partner for 3 months solid. Okay. And he did periodic evaluations, taught you how to write summonses, he taught you, the radio calls, Now, in those days, we were on the housing frequency. And our radios were like bricks. They were,
the big ones.
you could do a lot of damage.
Well,
with
the
those.
PD ones were heavy too back then.
These were
housing was much heavier.
If you were good, you could hit a guy at about 30 feet and take him down with that radio. But
there was an NYPD
wouldn't
detective
break.
that killed a guy throwing a radio at the back of his head.
I don't doubt it.
the guy from Narcotics.
But these radios,
remember that.
you could hit a guy in the small of the back, take him right down.
Wow.
I remember that,
That's a
yeah.
beautiful
You could
thing.
throw it
man.
at a bicycle tire.
Was that called,
take him right off
was
the
that
bike.
called physical force or deadly physical force?
It was just.
He threw a housing radio. That's deadly physical force.
I considered it humor. But anyway, what we used to do in the radio cars, because like my sector, for instance, was the Eddie Frank sector. It literally went from 70th and 1st, because there is one housing building on the corner of 70th Street, East 70th and 1st.
That could be considered
It's
like
a
the
senior
Hollywood
citizen-
housing
it's
over
a
there,
senior
right?
citizen building. You would get nothing but a DOA out of there. And the beauty of it was there was no parking in front of it because it was a senior citizen building,
Right.
I guess, for the ambulettes or whatever. So you got at least 3 summonses on the midnights there. So because
You had to write your 25
you had to write a
month?
book a month, right? Just keep your seat, no quotas, and
That's a police term. Keep your seat.
Keep your seat. DOA for our non-police personnel stands for dead on arrival. It's when you're old.
DOA means
even if you don't arrive, sometimes you never
You don't know
arrive.
what DOA means? Please tune out right now. You haven't listened to it.
Turn off your
I got to
podcast
take a
right
little bit
now.
of credit.
But keeping your seat.
I'm just
man.
trying to update people on police lingo.
But keeping your seat meant keep your seat in the car,
Right,
as
yeah.
opposed to because some people would think that because when you come out, you want to get out. That's
Right,
your first
right.
thing. Then from there, you want to get out on the street. Then from the street, you don't want to walk. You want to get into a radio car.
Right.
Then when you're in a radio car, you want to get into anti-crime.
Right, sure.
Then when you're anti-crime, you want to get into the
Oh, you
bureau.
want to make a detective.
And then when you're in the bureau, you want to get great. You want to get your gold shield, then you want to get great. And, it never stops wanting.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is. It's brutal. But
Well, it's been progressive. You want to keep moving and experience everything that the job has to offer. It's a good way. The way you put it is pretty good because
it keeps you hungry.
I know. I had the same exact feeling. I just didn't put it.
And
in
with
my
us,
mind.
it wasn't. We had no. I swear, we had no numbers quotas because there were so many numbers to be had that if you wanted any kind of a personal life, you had to turn your head on a lot of things because there were numbers. No one ever had to be flaked.
See, what,
no one ever. We didn't have to do
But what-
250s to just find stuff.
But Scotty, what you're talking about, what some of our audience don't understand, is when you made an arrest back then.
Oh, you were gone.
That was 24
you were gone
hours.
for 2 days.
That was 24 hours. Well, at least 24 hours and no sleep.
I was going to tell you, my first collar, we're with my FTO, much to his chagrin. He didn't want it, but I did it. And I got these 2 guys for an assault. And it was a felony collar. My first collar was a felony collar. In those days, there was no pre-arraignment. So you had to arraign your own guy.
Right.
So I remember, he had to walk me through the whole system. And we lodged him and, do all the paperwork. Luckily I came on right after the hard copy arrest sheets.
Right.
That were like 7 carbons thick. And
Yeah,
the
so
last
using
carbon
carbons is so funny,
better have
right?
been legible or,
Right.
like the only thing that would work was a big pen. You couldn't use any other kind of instrument to
wouldn't
write.
make it through.
Exactly. But the
Press hard, detective.
the
officer.
online bookings came out.
Yeah.
When I started, thank God, because when I was with the hospitals, as a narcotic investigator, they had the old arrest sheets. But that being said, I make the collar. We go through central booking, and now we go over to court. And I see this guy getting out on Baxter Street, the Baxter Street side. He's got a chaise lounge. His wife's there. He's with his kids, obviously. And he's got a chaise and like a little, it's before the igloos came out, but it was a small cooler. And he says, all right, honey, I'll see you in a couple of days.
But court.
she's
at court.
dropping him off.
Yeah, she's dropping him off at court. And he's got the chaise and the little cooler. And she's
They didn't like when you brought that shit down to court.
there was a room with church pews.
Yeah. And it was so uncomfortable to sleep in those things.
But God forbid you had to go use the bathroom because someone would jump in your spot.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
And there would be huge fights.
That's what people always say. Like
like a homeless
cops,
shelter.
you could sleep now with your head against the nail because you've slept on like the worst situation.
We slept in the staircases, on the floors. I remember vividly one day, we're all sitting around on the floors, and some boss comes through. All right, everybody up, everybody up, everybody up. Yeah. Sergeant comes through. Everybody ignores him. All right, 10 minutes later, lieutenant comes through. everybody up, let's go, everybody up. So guys start going through the motions. Guys would come with blankets, and they start dusting themselves off, whatever. And no one came, so everybody went back.
Back to sleep, yeah. No, you know who used to get pissed? The people that worked in the offices in the morning. They'd come in at 8, and it would be like homeless cops laying all over the
place.
They'd get pissed.
And now a deputy inspector comes in, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. Now everybody's at attention, okay? You know what it was for? The beginning of Law and Order episodes.
Oh, they didn't want them shooting.
And when Law and Order first started, they wanted to show the realism. So they had, I forgot the actor who was originally in Law and Order, but he was a very popular actor in the 70s. He did a cop movie in the 70s too.
Law and Order? You talking about Jerry Orbach?
No, it was before Jerry Orbach. This is when it first started.
Jerry Orbach?
Yeah. And they were doing the pilot and everything, and they wanted to see what ECAB looked like and the pre-arraignment and the whole thing, And that's why they had us stand up. And we're like, are you kidding me? We thought, the PC's coming through.
I used to love it when I was in BMOC. That's where you go for the basic management orientation course for sergeant. And you'd be in this big auditorium, and all these academy little weasels, right? They'd be like, the chief is in the building. The chief is in the building. It was like, I couldn't believe they were like kissing the ass like that. We were like, who gives a fuck? The chief's here. He pulled up in front,
Well, I got to tell you.
Because then when he walked in, everyone had to spring to attention. But it was like, this is fucking like kids. The chief is here,
I got to tell you a side note. When I went to my son's shield day, and I got to pin his shield on, I got saluted like, I was on a high. I'm walking through, and they're freaking coming to attention, saluting because I had a detective shield on.
I taught at CIC, and the recruit class was in there, and I'm in a suit and shit, and someone says, a sergeant from homicide is coming in, right? And I walked into the recruit class, and they sprung at attention like fucking Jack in the Box,
good for that.
I laughed so hard, I couldn't stop laughing. That was for me.
I'm telling you, I must have walked up and down the hall 3 or 4 times on purpose because it was such.
Where was this?
In the academy when my son after Shield Day. I must have walked up and down 3 or 4 times because it was just so great. I never had adoration like that in my life.
Oh, did they spring for attention for you?
They don't spring for attention, but what they do is they
salute you, sir.
And,
Oh, please! I had hope.
And I just walked. I got most of the time I got my headphones.
Oh yeah,
on,
and they step out of your way too, right? Make way.
Yeah,
right? They say make way.
This was the great. I'm telling you, I loved it.
I thought I was on the USS, with Porteous. I was on his naval ship, and make way. Here comes the admiral.
All right, so getting back to the days. My partner and I, they put us together. We were both rookies. He was out of the July 81 class. I'm out of the April 81 class. And he was a couple of years older than me, and he was a Green Beret in Nome. And he's from the South Bronx, Hispanic. Did not look Hispanic at all. Great guy, great cop. I mean, we just clicked, and we had a sector. And like I said, our sector went from 70th and 1st to 124th and 1st, over the 3rd and back.
Right.
That's one sector. And
that's the 2-3 and the 2-5.
Right.
Yeah.
And we turned out 4 RMPs and a sergeant, and it's sometimes a conditions call for backup, every night, every day, every tour. Now, again, what we would have to do, because we run a housing frequency, is first order of business was run over to the 2-8 and sign out a portable from the 2-8, because that's the 6th Division.
Right.
And then run to the 2-3 and sign out a portable from the 2-3.
How crazy is all
this?
Because
that's the 4th Division. And now imagine, you got the housing radios. One of you's got the 4th Division radio. One of you's got the 6th Division radio.
That could cause PTSD.
Plus, we have the AM/FM radio bungee corded to the signal stat with the antenna to the firewall, so we could listen to BLS, the Quiet Storm at night.
What's funny?
Because I know radios.
I had no idea that you guys had all those radios, and even with all those radios. Housing.
No housing available. No housing available.
Any housing on the air?
Triple O elevator.
Central.
Now explain what Triple O is, because I was going to bring that up.
Out of order elevator. Right. Triple O.
That's right.
And then the 2-3 sector would go, where is housing? Let them go their own
But this
jobs.
was the best. This was the best, though. You'd pull up on a job, like simultaneously. Because again, housing had a phone number that the tenants would call. Like in the old days before the 911 system, there was some kind of a phone number on the back of the RMPs. I mean, is it on that one? Yeah.
That's...
Dial, yeah. It's on the back of that. And housing, there was a number. And if memory serves, I think it was 876-5000. And I hope someone doesn't have that number now. But anyway, too late. So you would get jobs that didn't go through the 911 system.
Oh,
so,
through the
yeah. So you
operator,
you might be getting a heavy job. You know.
No, it was a bad system.
It was horrible.
It was a horrible system.
And we had a belt system where they put the card in the belt and it would ride through. And if there was a heavy job, the guy would stick his head through the hole and scream out.
But thank God you guys
Wait,
were backed
out the window?
up.
Huh?
Out the window?
In our headquarters.
No, but you guys...
Everybody has housing on the air.
You guys
but what I'm saying is, you would pull up on a job. Let's say we'd go up in Wagner houses, 2400 Second Avenue, right? In those days, you could drive all through the projects. There were no stanchions or anything. And let's face it, we're lazy as hell. We're not parking outside and walking our way in. Because also, airborne is coming down.
Yeah, sure. Airborne means people are throwing stuff off the rooftop at you.
Loaded Pampers, amongst other things. So you had to, walk apart, and you had a serpentine,
That's a good word, serpentine. You want to explain it to Mark, please?
He doesn't know it by
you
now.
didn't. What was the other word?
say that
Surreptitiously, we said.
Serpentine.
And
I can
serpentine.
say.
Oh, you know.
Surreptitiously,
All
I
right,
can
you know
say.
serpentine. I don't have to
Can't say
explain it to you.
surreptitiously.
Okay. So anyway, you'd pull up on a job. It's pouring rain. So you pull up on a job. Let's say it's whatever, a domestic. You pull up on a job. 2-5 would pull up. They'd look at you. You'd look at them, and you'd stand there nose to nose, and just wait. And you'd hear 2-5 Charlie, be advised that was 97 by housing, and get on the air on the housing portable. Central, be advised. This is 580 Frank. That was PSA 5. 580 Frank, be advised that was 97 by the 2-5. And that's it. And nobody got wet.
It confused them, right?
And nobody got wet. But in those days also.
Well, the other thing is, in those days, and even to today, the precinct of concern is backing up housing and vice versa.
No, that's one thing I got to say. In the 2-3 and the 2-8, in the 2-4, well, 2-4 is in the projects. They're in Douglas houses. I got to say, I was very fortunate. Even when I did, I worked in the Bronx, for 2 years in the squad. When I first got into the squad, I worked at PSA 7 squad for 2 years, and then I went into the housing homicide major case squad, which covered Manhattan and the Bronx. Primarily, we worked within the 4-0 and the 4-2 in the Bronx, the 4-3 and the 4-6. And there's so much project there that the squads, we got along. We were all buddies.
Right.
And plus, we had photos, and we had them arranged by project. So they would always come to us. Transit used to come to us.
But Scotty, you know how antiquated that is now?
Oh,
every cop has his own phone now. And pictures of wanted perps come up on the phone.
When I see what my son is carrying around, I'm like, what happens if you get wet? I mean, it's like you're going to...
A good cop never gets hungry, wet, or...
he's a rookie,
or horny.
So he's hungry, he's wet,
No, but think of how good that is to have that phone.
Well, yeah. Plus, they have their own radios.
Yeah.
Each one has a radio. You just got to get a battery. Each one they have their own radio.
People think, though, if you carry around a picture of someone, they think, it's got to be so easy to pick them out off the street. It's not.
But, it happened. Not. It happened not too long ago.
Yeah.
2 transit, and they were 2 different. They weren't even together. And they spotted the guy simultaneously, and they grabbed him for a couple of murders. He was wanted.
But it's not easy, though. I'm just saying.
I used to have, when we used to come out, we used to, when I was in warrants, you'd bring all your folders with you, and you'd be just driving around.
Yeah,
Then I would tell my partner, I would, stop, I got a warrant for that guy right there. And then I would just pick up my folders and go through all my folders just to verify. I'm looking at the kid, I find it. But it's just something that's in your head. It sticks in your head.
Right.
Cop's eyes. That's what it is.
If you keep staring at the picture, though, if you're driving around the neighborhood and you're looking at the picture and looking around, it doesn't work because everybody looks like that guy. It has to be something that comes right to you. That's the guy. There's a reason why he looks familiar.
We had a thing. Reading, Pennsylvania, sent us a package in the 2-3. I think you were there at the time. And me and Tommy, my former partner, Tom Lombardo, he's a supervisor in Manhattan DA's office in the Sex Crimes Bureau. Tommy and I we were the homicide team in the 2-3. We had our own caseload, but we would also help out whoever had a homicide there, and we were allowed to go down the basement on Sundays and dig through the old folders and find out something that maybe had solvability factor or whatever. And we cleared a couple of as old as 13 years. We were able to clear. People were still around.
Well, Scotty, going back to, I remember when I first got there in '97, there was, of course, that big case which turned out to be a serial killer.
Right.
And this was the advent, really, maybe even earlier than DNA was being put together. And, of course, it was that famous...
It was in its infancy.
Yeah, infancy. It was Aaron Key, who turned out to be a serial rapist and a murderer also. And you had one of those cases, right?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Sure. I came involved in it on September 10th, 97. And I'll remember the date because that's the day that my dad passed away.
Sorry to hear.
And that's back in 85. And I would traditionally, have dinner with my mom on that day, And working at 8 to 4. And I'm 4 o'clock, I'm out the door because I want to get home. I want to sit with my mom, because it's the love of her life,
Mm-hmm.
So, unbeknownst to me, there's a fire at 218 East 104, which is right diagonally across from the 2-3. You could see it from the windows of the squad. And it was on the roof. And firemen responded. They got up there, and they thought it was a rubbish fire. So they laid water on it. Once the water cleared, they realized it was a body. Otherwise, had they known it was a body, they would have put foam on it.
Right.
And it would have preserved a lot of evidence. But they had no idea. And I come in the next day, and one of the detectives in the 2-3, I'm not going to name, was assigned the case. And he wasn't in my team. I was in the D team. He was in the team that followed. If I was working 8 to 4s, he was coming in 4 to 1s.
Right.
So for those who don't know, detectives' chart is a 4 and 2 chart. You work 2 4 to 1s, you turn around, you come back, you work 2 8 to 4s. Then you're off 2. So I went to my boss at the time, Billy Kiley, who was a great, great boss. And I said, I want this. And he looked at me and he said, well, it's his case. I said, I want this case. Now, Tommy had responded because he was hanging out in the office just catching up on some paperwork. It was our last one.
I would have loved to work with you.
Oh, thank you.
I would have brought you over to my little, where the cabinet, that little shelf where the cases go in, your slot. And I would have said, hey, listen, Scott, whenever you go in here every day, whatever case...
No, trust me.
Trust me, you can take it. It's yours. Don't even ask. Just
Don't
take
even...
it.
No. I had my own case law, believe me. That's one thing. They never stopped. They never stopped.
So what happened? Go ahead. So you're asking the boss for this
I wanted this. I wanted it. It was just something that hit me. It felt personal. I wanted it. So the big thing was to get our ID. No one knew how. All we had was charred jewelry. So the detective who had it, I don't want to disparage anybody, but...
Too late now.
Well,
Too late now.
A little shaky.
You see where
a
we're
little
going with
shaky, and I made 2 phone calls and I had her ID.
From the jewelry.
Well, not only from the jewelry, but
there was a missing person.
I called
obviously.
missing persons.
Yes, obviously, yeah.
That's, come on. You don't have to
Investigation
be a brain
101,
surgeon to know
right,
this.
right.
You got an unidentified,
Female
charred
Hispanic.
female. So the first order of business, you got to get her identified.
Right.
I mean, and he insisted it was a suicide. So I said to him, listen, and I said in front of the boss, I said, this is not a Vietnamese monk, protesting the war. You know what I mean? This is a young Hispanic female on a rooftop of a project.
How old was she?
Oh, I don't recall. I believe in her early 20s, maybe 23. And she was a civilian.
How did you get her ID again?
She had pieces of jewelry.
Okay.
And she had something, again, going back to the Hebrew thing, she had what was called a mitzvah coin, which is, I don't know, the Irish have something similar to that, where it's a coin that's cut jagged, and it's 2 pieces. And you might wear a piece, your wife might wear a piece,
Okay.
and when they come together, it forms one. So she had that, which is very identifiable, and she had some stud pearl earrings, and of course we had dental records,
Right.
if we got that far. But all I did was I called missing persons. I said, "You got any, female Hispanics?" We assumed she was Hispanic,
right.
Missing, between the ages of 14 and 25, fresh. Yeah. First name he gives me, Joalis Castro. I said, "You got the phone number for the family?" Call the family. "Yeah, how you doing? Detective Wagner, 203 Squad. I understand your daughter's missing, yeah. Did she wear any type of..." I acted like I was just following up on the missing persons because I don't want to, tell someone on the phone something like this, especially something as horrible as this. So I questioned her about what type of jewelry does she wear, and right away the mother said, "Well, she has this special coin that's cut jagged that her best friend has the other half to." So right then I knew.
You knew you had the right one.
I knew who it was. So I go to the boss with this. I said, "Look, I got her ID. I mean, of course, she's not ID officially, but we have to get the dental records. No, that's what basically ID'd her. But I mean, she was to a crisp, and there was actually a ghost on the wall that was there. The fire was so hot. It wasn't actually out on the roof. When you came up the staircase in this particular thing, you would come into like an airway of sorts.
Right.
Or a breezeway. It had doors on either side.
The one that leads to the roof, or no?
Yeah. You'd come up to the roof.
Right.
You'd get out, and you'd be in this little breezeway, and then you'd have to go out of that. It was like a little bunker. You'd have to go out of that to be on the roof. But within this breezeway, there were two doors. One was access to the elevator room on the top, and the other was access to, I think there was a water tower or something. So that's why they had this breezeway there. But you could see her ghost burnt into the wall.
Doesn't that usually indicate an accelerant?
Oh, of course, we knew it was an accelerant. I mean, the fire marshals.
I'm not a fireman. I'm just
I'm just saying the fire marshal who I worked with, it was this guy Pepitone, it was Joe Pepitone's brother.
Can you swim?
Yes.
And he said no. But he was good. He was very good. It was like having another detective on the set. He was taken back when he had a daughter that age.
Yeah.
And
did your boss? Did you get the case after that?
Yeah, right away. And the other guy was like, "Thank you." He didn't want no part of it, So
it's an interesting thing when a homicide gets caught by a detective. It's not, he's not.
It's not the catching detective. But
we had a case that was one of the best double murders ever in the 2-3, and the detective that caught it could have cared less, and he didn't do anything on the case. We solved it for him, but he didn't want the case.
So
that's why Tommy and I were the homicide team in the 2-3.
So you got your hands on the case now. Now what?
And now that we get her officially identified, I go meet the parents, and we go, and there's a little bit of a language barrier, but I speak enough Spanish. I understand Spanish completely, and of course I took a Spanish-speaking detective with me anyway, and we got extensive interviews. They gave us access to her whole house. I had all her diaries, and I mean, we searched her room, completely. She was a legit, what we call a civilian. She was a Monroe College student. She had I believe, like an 18-month-old baby. From her baby daddy and her, they'd been off and on for maybe 5 years. And we even had him in. He admitted to us that he laid hands on her. And he said, "Yeah, I've hit her. I've pushed her. But it's the mother of my kid. I wouldn't kill her." Especially in that way, that's got to be. And, that was another argument we had with the ME's office. We had one ME that said she was burnt after she was dead. Okay, so how do you account for the soot in her lungs? Now, I'm no doctor. Right. I'm no ME. But I had two fortes as a detective. One was I must have gone to, I don't even remember how many autopsies. Because being that I lived in Brooklyn, and if there was a homicide the night before or the day before and they were posting the body, I was coming in, I would start my tour at the ME's office. And I'd witness the autopsy for whatever detective was why you got to go back down? I'm here.
Right.
I could do it. And I would ask a lot of questions. You know, it didn't bother me. You know, I had an immunity to it, and the smell. Once you get past the smell, but I would get all gowned up with the face shield, and I'd go in and I learned about a lot about trajectory, about stomach contents, how you can do a timeline, how long it takes for food to digest. You know, and you develop timelines this way. You know, you see if there's other injuries.
Rigor mortis, alga mortis,
everything, lividity, and how things you could tell if someone was moved or not. You know, there's a million things little things you could pick up, and the doctors don't mind you're there. They like that you're there.
They like to teach the natural.
Exactly,
teachers.
and they're talking anyway into a microphone. So you're taking notes, and they like if you ask questions about specific things.
We want to speed to the chase a little bit. So Johalis Castro was the first of 3 murder victims, right?
No, as it turns out, she was not. The first murder victim was a young girl by the name of...
Rashida Washington?
No, Rashida Washington was the third.
Okay.
Elera...
I know who you're talking about.
The name escapes me right now, I'm sorry. Paola.
Paola.
She was 13, and she was killed in 91. Wow. Along the FDR Drive, she was stabbed in the chest.
So that was like 6 years earlier.
It was. Now, all credit in the world to solve that homicide goes to Detective retired Mike Yolacco. Because Mike was in the 2-3 RIP.
Yeah.
He came from the Bronx, and when he got in the bureau, he went into the 2-3 RIP. He was a Bronx cop his whole career. And for some reason, I don't know why, that case became his pet. It was on his desk. You know, and every once in a while, he'd call the family on his own just to say, we're still working. Because let me tell you, with that case, you want to talk about a cold case. That was ice. Yeah. That was ice.
And a 13-year-old girl.
And we had, and stabbed right in the chest and put right on the side of the bridge, the footbridge in the FDR. Right. I can't tell you how many times we went there and stood at the location. The three of us,
thinking that the
just
killer would,
meditating,
but thinking that the killer would come back. Which sometimes
where why here? Where? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You try all these crazy things in your head. You know, we were even considering going to a psychic at one point. Right. You know.
No, but this was just.
But he
in
kept
hindsight,
that alive.
This was a sexual criminal.
And the only evidence they had on her was one pubic hair that they were able to tell was from a male black. They didn't have anything in 91.
Years later, did they identify that with DNA? Did they identify that pubic hair years later?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a funny story related to that. I had to take him to the morgue to have them pluck his pubes. So obviously when he was in, he got word that they were doing it, so he shaved. They wanted to take hairs from the nape of his neck and his pubic hair. So he shaved. So I don't know at what rate pubic hair grows on an individual, but we had to get a court order.
I could tell you.
Okay.
Like 2 or 3 weeks.
For how long?
Well, if you want to start like a length, about a 1/4 inch.
Oh, okay. This is fine.
How do you know?
I was going to say, and you know
how
that.
How do you know that? Is that a personal thing?
Is that a Manscaped tip?
I shave certain areas of my body for one reason or another. I'm not proud of it.
But
I heard that bit before.
We had to.
It was wide open.
The taint. That leads to the taint, I think, doesn't it?
So go ahead. So
you leave the taint out of the story. So anyway, we go to her phone records because we're like, she's from the Bronx. What the hell is she doing in Spanish Harlem? Okay.
And we're back to talking about the second girl.
Paola Elera?
No, the second girl. My case. Yeah. Paola is not part of anything at this point. Okay, Joe Howells. And our biggest thing is, what is this girl, who's a civilian, doing in this neighborhood on a rooftop? Now, you start theorizing what would bring her to the neighborhood. Okay? I mean, as far as anything, like I said, we read her diaries, we phone books, everything. I felt it's so weird because you feel like you know someone, but because you're reading their inner thoughts.
Right, sure.
But you don't know them in life. You only know them in death. And she was a beautiful girl, a beautiful baby. You know, her kid. And like I said, she was a Monroe College student. She was trying to better herself. Single mom. What had happened was, it turns out, she had met a young lady shopping on Fordham Road. And the young lady turned out to be Aaron Key's girlfriend. And they got into talking, as women do when they're shopping. So they exchanged numbers. And, of course, again, to find out how she got to the neighborhood, we found out that her uncle worked for a car service in the Bronx. And whenever she wanted to go somewhere, she'd call her uncle. So the car service, of course, the one day she calls him to take her someplace, he's on an airport job. So they get another driver who, you know, she knows to trust to take her. We interview him. He doesn't remember a thing. He doesn't keep records of nothing. We had to go through, I don't know how many stacks, thousands of dispatch sheets to find her call that day.
Wow.
Now, we got her phone records. So we knew when she called, but we had to find the driver.
Is this pre-cell phone or?
Yeah. Well,
This is
this
before
is
cell
97.
phones, yeah.
Cell phones were in the mix, but not like now.
Yeah.
You know. But again,
Kids can't understand when they say, "What? There was no cell phones back then?"
no tin cans in a string. But her phone records indicate she's calling a number. You know, the exchange was in East Harlem. You know, an East Harlem exchange. So again, you know, we have to go through the phone company to get, you know, subpoena for the subscriber information. You know.
Right.
Luckily, I had a hook. You know, I had two great hooks that I used to charge guys for. I had a hook in a phone company, and I had a hook in welfare. And the welfare hook was the best.
The welfare hook.
Because that thing went back 7 generations.
Oh.
And not only that, see, that's another great thing about housing. Just as to regress, housing had to do double work. You had to do a 61 on a complaint. If you went to take a complaint on, you know, whatever, a burglary, let's say, for argument's sake, you had to do a 61. And each precinct had a block of 61 numbers reserved for housing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And housing had their version of a 61, which was called an IR, or an ICR, which was an incident complaint report. So you basically had to do double work, because the IR for housing had to have a 61 number on it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but those IRs were delivered to the management offices every week. So, and they were put in the folders. So when you were looking at a family
of the
tenants involved,
yeah, that's great. That's
so
great.
housing
What an
has,
investigative resource
oh my
that is.
God! And if you had a housing assistant that you know you took care of, and they took care. Let me tell you, you could find information on Social Security numbers, you name it, anything. You find it, because housing, the apartments were handed down.
Right.
From grandma to mom to daughter and so on. And you'd find, you know, grandma in, you know, buttfuck North Carolina, and that's where Sonny Boy was hanging out. And let me tell you, it was a fantastic thing.
No, that's a great resource.
But, and again, this is all before computers. We had the basic, you know, BADs and car systems, you know, but
Green screen.
Yeah, and DMV. What else? When I needed anything, you know, done on like a LexisNexis check or whatever, I'm sorry. Shows you where my head's at. I used to call a friend of mine the Daily News because I had a lot of friends that were reporters, you know, in the Daily News and in various, like John Miller and I were buddies. He used to do ride-arounds with me in anti-crime. He was the biggest cop buff in the
Still
city.
is.
But he's, again, that's one of the hooks that my son doesn't know he has.
Right.
But with that being said, I had to call because they had access to the internet.
Right.
We had no internet access. You know, I remember you mentioned Schlegel before. He was one of the first guys to bring in a laptop. We were amazed when we saw this thing, and he was doing flight simulator. He taught himself how to fly on a laptop, and he actually
even some of the searches you could do on the internet could help you.
There was no social media back then.
No, but the police department didn't have the internet back then. You had to laptop.
I remember guys used to bring in their own laptops and plug them in. Remember the telephone wire and the whole bit. But
or how about trying to get a picture from another police jurisdiction back then?
Well, I tell you one thing.
It was like impossible.
I tell you one thing. I had better cooperation. I had better cooperation in working homicides with outside agencies than I did if you were to call up, if you were in the 2-3 and you called the 19th, do me a favor, can you pull them? You got a case with such and such?
Right.
I'd get better cooperation if I called Pittsburgh Homicide. They'd get back to me in a half hour. The 19th would never call.
I'm just talking about even the technology. We used to have to use our own emails to get a picture sent to us from another police jurisdiction, which isn't a good thing. Who is this Seaball Express email? That's my personal email,
Well, we got the phone records and we got the subscriber information.
Right.
If we had to wait, it would have been weeks. If you had to wait for the subpoenas to go through, and then you had to go down there to 6th Avenue, and it was a whole rigmarole. So we got the phone records, and we get the subscriber information, and it's Cynthia Key. Cynthia, there's a number of calls back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All right, so now we have someone in the neighborhood she's calling, and he lives in this is a development. It's called 1199 Plaza.
Yeah, I know.
It's a private development, and it's on along First Avenue, from like 111th to about 108th. It goes, and it's 1199 because it's the union. 1199 union funded it, and it's mostly for their workers.
Right.
So there's very nice buildings actually, very doormen, security. So. I call up, and I get the mother on the phone, and I talk to her, and I tell her who I am, and I said, do you have any sons or daughters or whatever? She says, yeah, I have a son. How old is he? And this is all over the phone. And she says, he's about 20, he's 23. I said, really? What's his name? And she gives me the name, She says, Aaron Malik Key. Okay. I said, could you leave a message, please, and have him call me? She doesn't even ask me what it's in reference to. So 3 hours later, I get a phone call. It's him. I said, listen, you think you can come by the precinct? Because I don't want to come by the house, and, you don't want to be seen talking to cops or whatever. I got to ask you a couple of questions about a friend of yours. He goes, sure, what time do you want me to come over? I mean, articulate, charismatic, well-spoken. He shows up right on time, but he brings his girlfriend and their baby, an infant. And I had the interview room staged with, we had tips posters made very quickly. Everything was done very quickly. We had the tips posters in there, a couple of Polaroids sticking out intentionally, from an envelope, just to see his reaction when he went in the room. None. Sits down, again, answers every question I ask him. No attitude, no screw the police, I don't got to be here. Nothing of that kind. No vibe. No bad vibe off him. Does he have a record? Yeah. A robbery. He had one robbery arrest. A couple of juvie stuff that was sealed. And I recall he had a robbery collar that he pled out to, and he did like 7-8 months. It wasn't a weapon involved. It was strong.
He went upstate?
No, it was time served at Rikers, I think, I believe. But he had one collar. So I'm saying, we got a perp. He's perpish, and he's in the neighborhood, and he admits. He goes, yeah, I met her on Fordham Road with my girlfriend. The girl started talking, and they called to get together. They became friendly. They called to get together. And, she was coming here to go shopping. Because along 3rd Avenue in East Harlem is a big shopping area. From like 100th Street to about 108th Street, a lot of stores, And
there's one gourmet restaurant called McDonald's, too, right over there, right?
It's still there. You'll be surprised what's there now. It's scary.
I know.
So much gentrification in that neighborhood. I hate it. But because I'm up there all the time. And, like I said, my mother-in-law still lives up there. And, I still see people that know me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come up, hey, how you doing? But, and I have no idea who they are. But, again, he's freely admitting, that she came that day. And he says, yeah, I saw her. And at this point in time, she said she was leaving. And we said goodbye. And she left. Okay. How did she get to that roof and why? He goes, I don't know. If I would have known, I'd tell you. He goes, I really feel terrible about this, when I found out about it. How did you find out about it? Well, it's the talk of the neighborhood. Everybody's talking about it.
Right.
So I said, when did you learn that it was your friend? He said, well, when you called my house. He says, I put two and two together. And I figured that's why they're having me come in, is because of this. Like I said, mind you, the girlfriend's sitting outside with the infant. So now, I take his statement. He gives a full statement that he talked to her, that he was with her that day, the whole bit, freely. Never asks for an attorney, never asks for a thing.
Right.
Free, well, again, articulate, good-looking kid, dressed, not dressed street, dressed casually, but not street.
Right.
Very, very well-spoken for someone his age. He was into computers and things. He was a wannabe DJ and all of that. And so he was articulate and charismatic. So now I ask him if he'll sit outside and let me talk to the girlfriend. So she hands off the baby, and the girlfriend comes in with me. Now she starts losing it when she sees the Polaroids and stuff. She starts losing it. And visibly she's shook up. She's shaking. And I got nervous. I thought she was really gonna go out on me. So got her water, calmed her down. We apologized that she had to see that, this and that. And the reason why she got so sick was because she had sickle cell. That's just a side note to this, because it applies later. I take a statement from her. It concurs completely with his. Like any couple, if you and your wife went out, with a friend, you would have the same version, right, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got him. He's the phone records. That's the thing that gets into the neighborhood. Now what happens? We don't know. And we would canvas. They were tired of seeing us over there. Every time we went out on a case, if we were near there, we'd go over there. They were tired of seeing us. And
so this is 1997.
Yeah.
Now, what year is the murder of Rashida Washington?
We'll see. Joe Howells was September 97. I believe Rashida had to be the spring of 98.
98. And in between that,
we had a number of rapes. Now, this is another thing. I had a habit of taking Polaroids of everybody. This was taught to me by an old-timer. Everybody I ever interviewed on a case, take a Polaroid of them. Because if someone has to come behind you to look at, find somebody, you got a picture of them.
Right.
Okay? And I had Polaroids of Key. And Key, in the Polaroid, was wearing a sweatshirt that said FUBU, the make FUBU, across the front. Again, we had rapes going on that we didn't know were tied in, because they were going they were not only in the 2-3, but they were in the 2-5.
So this is 98, 99, 2000, is it?
This is going, yeah, it's continued. We had a bunch of rapes, here and there. And description was always, male black. The victims always were female Hispanics or light-skinned black females, same age, same type of build. They fit a pattern. We started recognizing a pattern. Actually, at the time, Resnick was the one who decided to put a task force together. Now, when Rashida is found, I'm called in that morning. I'm supposed to do a 4 to 1.
Just, I want you to talk about a little bit, because this is important, how Rashida was found.
Okay.
Because it's indicative, at least what I know. I study homicide a lot. Besides, I taught college for years, and she was displayed in a very sexually provocative position.
Well,
which usually
the crime scene was staged.
Right, but which usually indicates the sex offender.
But that being said, she was in public view, and she was covered by a sweater, which indicates remorse, usually, for what was done. And again, they called me in on it. I come in. She's found in the staircase at like 6 a.m. by someone. The elevator was triple O, like you said before. And someone was walking down the steps, and they found her on like the 6th floor landing.
There was also something that was unusual. She had square marks on her
she
back.
had like a cross-hatching on her back.
Right.
Now, mind you, she was not found face down. She was found face up.
Right.
But the cross-hatching from lividity was so
pronounced.
Vivid. Yeah. It looked like an actual graph paper type of thing. And we're trying to figure out what could make this. Now, we knew from the onset it was a strangulation killing. The ME that came to the scene, she had petechial hemorrhaging. You could see it was a strangulation.
Petechial hemorrhaging is the white of the eyes, the conjunctiva. It ruptures and
becomes
it leaves.
pink.
Yeah, it becomes pink. So that's what petechial hemorrhaging.
And
is
also,
called.
you could start to see like handprints forming as the lividity
bruising
around her neck.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out what is this cross-hatching. Now, in a lot of the old, in the housing apartments, there were like these dryers for clothes that you pulled up over the tub and you'd let them down. They were made of wood, and you'd hang the clothes on them and you'd pull it up again, to air dry them.
Yeah.
So we had to find an apartment that had one, and then we had to try to see if it would measure up. Didn't. So we're like, where the hell did this come from? Because she had to be pushed down with quite force onto this. So again, we're trying to figure out whatever.
But this was probably a post-mortem pattern, right? Because the lividity had set in. You said it was so pronounced.
Well, it became more prominent.
Yeah. Like she wasn't alive when that.
No, it was alive. She was alive when that pattern was put on her.
You sure?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's what we believe.
Okay.
Well, again, we're trying to figure out what could cause it, and I forgot who. I wish I could give them the credit that they deserve, but someone came out and said, it looks like the pattern on a shopping cart. Sure as shit, someone runs to the store,
supermarket,
buys a shopping cart, we bring it up, and the back of the shopping cart,
it's perfect.
They're almost perfect. Yeah. All right. So now we know what that came from. All right. So again, the only suspect we have, and we have a composite now, because this is what he was doing. The girls that he didn't know, he wasn't killing. He was just raping them. The girls he knew, it turned out, he was murdering. Of course, we didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But we had really good composite sketch. And at one rape, he'd also say things to the victims about how good-looking he was. You should be honored that a guy like me is doing this to you as opposed to some ugly junkie or whatever. Soup himself up. And he's our only viable suspect. The composite comes out. And at one rape scene, is found what? A FUBU hooded sweatshirt.
Right. And
a baseball cap is left at the scene. The composite sketch, I see the composite, which was done between 3 or 4 rape victims and the department artist. And I take the Polaroid, and I'm like, oh my God. It was like the sketch was done from the Polaroid.
Wow.
And I got him wearing a FUBU. So I called Resnick right away. And I said, Chief.
What year was this?
This was right after Rashida.
So 98.
This has got to be 98 going into the summer. So I call, meanwhile, there's a partial laundry tag in the,
I remember
the
that
sweatshirt.
story,
They're
yeah.
running around trying to find the laundromat. Actually, the one who...
That was a funny story, too, because Mike Yulako, who I love, Mike Yulako, Resnick says, look, we got this tag from a dry cleaner. And Mike Yulako was like, get the fuck out of here. You're never going to fucking find that. And sure enough...
Well, you know who found it, right?
Tommy McCabe.
Tommy McCabe,
Yeah,
Ruffy.
they find the dry cleaners.
That's old school detective work.
That little tag was...
And it wasn't a complete tag. It was a partial of the tag.
And now you tell the rest of the story.
And old-time police work. Just go to every dry cleaner you can find in Spanish Harlem. And sure enough, Tommy McCabe, old-time, 40-year guy, salt of the earth, worked with him, had the blessing of working with him, in the homicide squad. Taught me a lot. Just his nature alone. He had principles far beyond those of mortal men.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And he found it. He found a laundromat, and guess who's the client? Cynthia Key.
The mother of Aaron Key.
The mother of Aaron Key, who I talked to at the very beginning of the case. So I got him in a picture wearing that.
Right.
So now the hunt goes on. Okay? So we know where he lives. I have a CI in that building, a very good CI. It turns out, in digging deeper into his background, and this was Mike Yulako doing it, because Mike Yulako was assigned to do certain computer. Everyone had an assignment.
Right.
And being that he didn't catch any one of the cases, he finds, I don't know how he even came across it, but that he used the name Warford, his last name, Aaron Warford. And that goes off in his mind, because in the Paola case that's been sitting on his desk for 5-6 years, there's an interview with an Aaron Warford.
Wow.
Who's one of the last eyewitnesses to see that girl alive.
You know, can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
I just remember something, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Aaron Key was under arrest at one point. He was in the cell in the 2-3.
He was in the cell when Rashida was killed.
They started talking about the case.
When we found Rashida that morning, and now we come back to the squad.
Right, I just want to mention
he was in
this.
the cell because another detective in the squad caught, I don't know, some kind of petty larceny or grand larceny of computer parts. Like I told you, he was...
Right.
He fashioned himself a computer expert.
But I just want to mention this.
He had stolen, someone made a 61 that he had stolen. He had supposed to fix a computer, never returned it.
Right.
It was one of those kind of things. So it was an easy collar. She went and got him, and he's in the cell.
Right, but the point is,
mind you,
they were
she's
talking
killed
about
6 in the morning.
Two detectives were talking about the case.
Yeah, right in front of him.
Is the killer,
and he's in the
cell. I'm just giving a lesson where you never talk about anything in front of a perp.
You never know. No, but you never know.
Right. This is the perp.
Because now I can walk.
Now he's hearing all the information they have or what they don't have.
Now, mind you,
and they're talking
at the time, he wasn't a suspect. When we came back to the squad. I mean, my God, we were out on the field since she was found around 6. By the time I got there, I like rolled out of bed and shot there. And by the time I got there, it was maybe 7:15. We were out at the scene processing and canvassing and doing it. We didn't get back till like 1:30 in the afternoon, So, a whole ton of us come back in and everybody's shooting the shit about, the case and what's going on.
Serial murderer in your cell.
And meanwhile, lo and behold, look who's there,
But you don't know
he
this,
says to me, and he calls out to me, "Hey, Wagner, how you doing?" And mind you, she collared him somewhere around 11. I don't exact memory is hard to remember what time she collared him. I think it was in the morning, about 11:30, and he was a keeper because it was a grand larceny. Right. So he was going through the system. So he's in the cell. And he calls out to me, and I said, "What are you doing here? What happened?" And he tells me, she locked me up for this and that. I said, "Oh, sorry to hear that, this and that." And I said, "Have you heard anything else about your friend?" He goes, "I tell you, if I did, I'd call you." And he goes in his wallet, and sure enough, he's got my card in his wallet, and, so he's there. But again, he was nowhere near a suspect at this point. But later on, as things developed, and we got the clothes recovered, and there was hair in the hat, and there was fibers on the sweatshirt. Okay, I remember they had that sweatshirt on a mannequin, in Resnick's office for a long time. And
well, you can also just see how today DNA saves lives.
Oh yeah, well, it took.
Because he would have been identified years earlier had
Sure.
DNA technology
On that one pubic hair.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is now it took 3 months, approximately 3 months, to get him named as, the one who owned the sweatshirt.
Right.
It took that long. Because that's how the tag wasn't even noticed. It was like so rolled up, and it was a miracle. It was like almost like her sending a message.
Yeah.
Look here, look here, look here. And McCabe found out, and boom! As soon as he found out, we hit the street like an army, and we went out and we went to hunt him down. I and Rob Mooney hit his apartment. We actually had Taru set up a camera outside his apartment, phony smoke detector. He was hip to it. He ripped it down. It was. Remember, he's only a suspect at this point.
But he's not ID'd in anything.
He's not ID'd in anything. He's just a suspect. So we're watching him 24/7, and they're trying to collect DNA. If he flicks a cigarette butt, if he spits, we're trying to do something. And finally, other detectives, they bring him in. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Surreptitiously,
he flees. He ends up disappearing. He's supposed to meet me and Rob Mooney on 110th Street. He calls us, and we're in communication with him. But again, this is when you could track a cell phone and all that. Right. We're in communication with him, and he says, "I'll meet you on 110th. I trust you guys. You're not going to shoot me," and nothing like that, and this and that. And Rob is telling him, "Listen, don't have your hands in your pockets. Just we're going to do this by the book." And of course, he doesn't show, and he ends up fleeing with another girl who's like 16, 17 years old from Brownsville. I don't know how he hooked up with her, and we last track him to the Port Authority on a bus to Florida. So they're trying to, catch up to the bus.
Sure.
And they can't. Now, at this point, while this is happening, Tommy and I are in Reading, Pennsylvania on an unrelated case. We grabbed a guy in Manhattan that Reading was looking for, who we happen to know. You had brought up before about when you're looking for a guy, everybody looks like him. Mm-hmm. Well, we went out on it. We handed out a few cards. One night, our beepers go off. Beepers.
Yeah, beepers.
At the same time, we call back. Yeah, he's on a 10-speed wearing a white wife beater. So we go out. Everybody on a 10-speed is wearing a white wife beater. But then he spies us, he sees us, and it's like dun, 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 and it's like in the part in The Wizard of Oz where she's on the bike. Yeah. That's what it was like. And I'm hanging out the car door trying to knock him off the bike. I mean, cars are coming from 3 precincts. Stuff's flying off the buildings. It's like a Friday night in August, Anyway, we collar the guy. We bring him in. There was a shot fired. I don't know where. A cop ended up getting 3/4 for a heart attack that night. But we brought him in without a scratch. We didn't even have him cuffed. He was sitting in the interview room. Didn't even have him cuffed. He knew us. I was cool. And, they had a warrant for him, so they couldn't talk to him, but we could. Right. Because we were talking, did you know anything in the neighborhood here? But he confessed to 2 murders in Pennsylvania to us. So much to the chagrin of Lieutenant Kiley.
You had to go to Reading.
We had 4 trips. So we
made a lot of money on that, I bet.
Yes, we did. And he's doing 2 consecutive life terms. But again,
Pennsylvania has some bad experiences with detectives from the 2-3. Detective Pat went there and got a confession, remember?
No, we got the confession here.
Wait a minute, what happened with Aaron Keyes now?
Okay, so what I'm telling you has happened. Tommy and I are coming back from Reading, and we're driving back. And we get right by Newark Airport. We turn 1010 winds on. Siege in Florida. Serial killer from New York is holed up in a hotel in Miami. We know what it is. I called the 2-3 right away. I said, Tommy and I are right by Newark. Let us get on a plane right now and go down there. We'll be there in 3 hours. No. What do you mean no? He'll talk to me. No. Again, I knew he would talk to me. Okay? I had a rapport with him. No one else did. I was the only one who interviewed him. And he's caught dead to rights at this point. You know, he's a wanted fugitive. He's caught dead to
But
rights.
his DNA is positively
We got a hit.
ID'd
We got
prior,
hits
yes,
at
yeah.
this point. He's you know,
He's ID'd by his DNA.
yeah. That's why we
but
were
when
trying
he's
to.
in Florida right now and he's locked in that hotel room,
Right.
he's hiding out because of a warrant that was put out.
No
for New
warrant.
York?
We had no warrant.
Why
No, there's
did
two
Florida-
detectives from New York going after him. That's why
Yeah.
he's holed up.
And
Bob
Already?
Mooney and Daryl Hayes are there
Daryl
from the
Hayes.
homicide squad.
And again, I should have been going down there. And I said, I got to go down there. He'll talk to me. They refused. And till this day, I'm pissed off. But that's politics. What are you going to do? Mooney and Daryl, they spot him. What happens, happens. They, you know, the SWAT team in Miami gets him. You know, thank God the girl was not hurt. She would have been the fourth victim. And he makes spontaneous utterances, or whatever, at the time. Daryl lets him talk to, you know, the girlfriend, say goodbye, and he basically makes some admissions. But never a statement, never a full statement. So, you know, he's brought back to New York, and, you know, he waives extradition. He's brought back. And at this point in time, the girlfriend, who I had, goes to Virginia to live with her mother, with the baby. I want to go re-interview the girlfriend because I know for a fact, again, we had this big argument with the ME's office, was she alive or dead when she was set on fire?
Right.
Well, we had the ME make the determination. She was alive. She was burnt alive. So there were no screams heard. There was nothing. So he had to do something to quiet her, whether he was aided by someone else, which I always felt he was. A little side note to that, we talked about getting messages before and getting them right. I was on my swing. Because it became a cold case. So a year to the day, we redid a friend of mine at Daily News ran the whole thing again.
Uh-huh.
Put the squad's number and tips. Phone call on my swing comes to the squad for me. Someone from the RIP picks it up and says, Wagner's not here. He says, well, listen, I got information about that girl that was burnt on the roof. There was a guy and a girl that did it. He goes, all right, Wagner will be in Monday at 4. Call him back.
Wow.
And this detective was not a dumb detective. He was a sharp detective, but he must have been preoccupied.
So,
But what we ended up having we got lugs and tolls from the precinct because we didn't know if it came directly to the squad, if it came through the TS,
right,
and it was transferred up. We don't know. You know what I mean? But never got another call again. But this caller stated there was a guy and a girl involved.
Right.
So I want to go talk to the girlfriend again. She's in Virginia. They won't let me go. I don't know why. Okay? I go to resident. Boss, I spoke to her before. Let me go. Send anyone you want with me, but let me go talk to her. No. So he sends other detectives. Oh, they come back without any confession, but she says to them, and it's on a 5. I would have told Wagner what happened that day he had me in the interview room. But Ace, that was his nickname, Ace had the baby. And I was afraid he would hurt my baby. He goes, I would have told. So I'm saying to myself, if I could have gotten her to tell me, Rashida never would have died.
Wow.
And 4 girls never would have gotten raped. It's heavy to carry with you. But
that's, police work is not an exact science.
It's
we all
not.
know
what's
that.
great about today is that you took us step by step through this case and how it built it up.
And
there's so many moving pieces to it.
Oh,
things like this is so.
The best was, again, when we took him back to the ME's office. When he got the court order, because he became Muslim, so he'd eat kosher and he didn't have to go to court on Friday. The whole bit. So they got him cuffed. Whoever brought him from Rikers let him come in front cuffed, carrying a Koran. So they pluck him, and we got to take him back to lodge him. Now it was me and Rob taking him back. Right. I forgot who went and picked him up. So I said, "Put your hands behind your back." And he goes, "No, I don't do that." Excuse me? I said, "Put your hands behind your back." He goes, "I don't do that." I said, "Listen, pal, Bellevue is right across the street. And I'm going to tell you right now, either you put your hands behind your back or you'll be in Bellevue with 2 broken arms." I mean, who do you think you are telling me?
Front cuffed.
You know, well, how am I supposed to carry my Koran? What Koran? You hear thump. You know, the Koran, I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
All I know is he was rear cuffed, and as I clicked the cuffs together, I whispered in his ear, "This is for Joe Hallis." And I clicked it. And he turned his head so fast and looked at me in the eye.
Yeah.
And he was gonna say something. And then he sucked it back in.
Right.
And I remember in the car telling him, "One day I'm gonna come upstate to visit you. And you're gonna tell me the real story about what happened." P.S. He gets 600 years. The trial was a whole sham because even the 18B...
He represented himself.
Yeah,
right?
the 18B lawyers, you know, because it was technically a death penalty case. So they had not the regular legal aid, the real lawyers. And, you know, they let him pull his T-shirt out with all kinds of stupid theories and notes. It was lunacy. But, of course, they had to entertain it, you know. But at sentencing, he got, you know, they allowed all the parents to speak. And by the way, that one pubic hair got hit to him, mitochondrial DNA.
From 1991?
From 91. And that's why we could charge him with all 3 homicides.
Wow.
Because of his DNA was on all 3 victims.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think 7 rape victims, 2 were Jehovah's Witnesses, but we got them to pick him out of a photo array. So we were able to close those with the permission of the DA. And there's still 2 homicides that I'm 100% sure he did. One's in the South Bronx in the 4-0. His mother had moved to the South Bronx. She was same height, weight, and build. She's from East Harlem. She was visiting someone in South Bronx. She was suffocated, you know, choked, wrapped in duct tape. We recovered duct tape on the search warrant. Of course, you know, upon his arrest, we searched his premises and we got, you know, recovered the duct tape. I remember Rob Mooney hand-delivered the duct tape. He had to go by an Amtrak to D.C., to the FBI. There's a duct tape guy, you know. You know, he's got the pocket protector and pennies. He does duct tape. He said, "I can't testify to this in court, but it's the same duct tape."
Wow.
He says, "We don't have the technology." And there's just one thing, and there's one in Virginia, but they don't care because it's Virginia and she's a woman of color, and so there's 2 more.
He already got 600 years.
Yeah, what's throwing another couple on?
Right.
Except closure for the families.
Right, absolutely.
Which is very important.
Yeah.
Ultimately
Most important.
Yep. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for coming by, man. The story was fascinating. I'm happy that we had a chance to chat on the first half and yuck it up a little bit, because this whole second half, I mean, even though it's an amazing case, it kind of put me in a bad way. It's really depressing.
I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying, it's like great detective work, but it's just unfortunate.
But I want to
for
also
you to
say,
do your job.
it wasn't just me.
No, I know. Everybody.
It was a task force. It was a team.
Everybody involved in it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's why it's great
just to
that you
mention, this
names.
is featured on a TV show called
2.
The Shopping Cart
2
Killer.
TV shows.
On, what was that?
That was
Bill
done by
Curtis.
Curtis Productions.
Yeah.
And that's called The Shopping Cart Killer. Then there's another one that Linda Fairstein, who was the former head of sex crime,
Right.
had a TV show called Murder by the Book.
Okay.
So it's also featured in one of her episodes in Murder by the Book. So if you Google it, you could find the...
Any parting words, Phil?
Look, every week we have a fascinating guest, and he didn't disappoint. You know,
No,
this was
fun and informative, and
for our
riveting,
audience too. You see how emotionally charged this gets for the detectives and that are involved. that they put their whole life and
Definitely
heart
feel
and soul
man.
in it. You know,
I felt it. You were rubbing off on me.
So I applaud the NYPD's finest. You know,
Scott, thanks for coming in, man.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate
Thank you very
having you.
much.
We'd love to have you back.
I'd love to see you.
Like I tell all our guests, September 21st, we're going to probably do something over at Pleasantville. And,
Lucy's,
Lucy's in Pleasantville. And what it's going to be is we're going to tell some jokes, but before that, we're going to have a live podcast. We're inviting all our past guests on. Everybody's going to get a chance in the hot seat. We're going to catch up with everybody. And that'll be the end of our first season, and then we'll start another season. But
Sounds great.
Thanks for coming by. And on behalf of Police Off the Cuff, man, this was a great episode, and thanks for tuning in. Over and out. Oof. Western